Hi! I'm back again, your resident history nerd, and I'm ready to put some stuff on my face. You may have thought, she looked okay at the last video, but she would do a lot better with some makeup. And you know what? I agree with you. But it takes a little while to put makeup on, so while I'm doing that, I'm going to tell you some more stories. This is very exciting for me because I love history, I love stories, and I love telling history stories. So let's get started. I'm going to start by doing some face treatment, and then I'm going to put the actual makeup on. So, you know, it's good to put stuff on your face before you actually make yourself beautiful. So, let's start. So I'm going to tell you about Naengmyeon. First of all, if you have any interest in Korea, you may have already heard of Naengmyeon. Naengmyeon is a cold noodle soup. Naeng means cold, myeon means noodle. So, Naengmyeon is cold noodles. Easy peasy. One of the things I love most about the Korean language is how literal it is. Naeng, cold, myeon, noodle, cold noodle. The word for raisin in Korean is konpodo. It means dry grape. You know what a raisin is? It's a dry grape. So, anyway, so let's get into Naengmyeon. Naengmyeon is such a popular food, and quite cheap too. It's such a popular food that probably most people who visit South Korea, most people who even live in South Korea, might not realize that it's actually a North Korean food. Bibimbap Naengmyeon has been made since the Chosun Dynasty, but mul Naengmyeon has been made since the Goryeo Dynasty. Can you believe that? Chosun Dynasty started in 1392. Goryeo Dynasty is much older. So pretty much Naengmyeon is older than me or your grandma. And so it's got a really, really long history. And most of that history comes from North Korea. This is an ampoule, by the way. It's the same ampoule you saw me use in the other video because it's very good for you. So, but anyway, so most of Naengmyeon comes from North Korea, and it's been documented in the Annals of the Chosun Dynasty. Now you might say, Maggie, what is the Annals of the Chosun Dynasty? Well, that happens to be a record, which is recognized as a UNESCO Memory of the World Heritage. The Annals of the Chosun Dynasty are records. Everything that happened in the Chosun Dynasty was recorded in these books, and what we find in the Annals of the Chosun Dynasty are documents about Naengmyeon. We found that Naengmyeon was a reward for generals who participated in military training. And we found that Naengmyeon was a very popular dish among the elderly, too. So, it's been around for a long time, and it's still popular today. It actually really, really blew up after the Korean War. It got super, super popular. It got popular with rich people in the 1920s, and it got super popular with everybody else in the 1950s after the Korean War. Pyongan Province, or Pyongan-do, and the other one is Hamhung, which is in Hamgyong Province, or Hamyongdo. Hamgyongdo. Don't say it wrong, please, Maggie. Don't mispronounce things. So anyway, those are the biggest cities, Naengmyeon, and so that's why the official noodle association comes out of Hamgyong as well. There's this story. It's called The Legend of the Rock of the Crow, and it's this story about Hamgyong Province near the sea. There's this village, this fishing village. Which, you know, I'm thinking about fishing while putting on some sunscreen because I'm cool. But anyway, so there's this fishing village, and there's this guy in the village. His name is Hojang. And Hojang is super nice. He's known throughout the village as being just the kindest dude around. But at this time, there were some pirates. These Japanese pirates were knocking around the shores of Korea, stealing things, taking the women, stealing food and fish and all the good stuff, you know, doing pirate stuff. And Hojang had had enough. Hojang was like, these pirates, they come to my village, they take things, they hurt people. I'm tired of it. So he rallied with his neighbors. He said to his neighbors, come on, there's more of us than them. Let's all, you know, fight these pirates. So he and his neighbors, they got together, and they totally failed. They got beaten and killed by the pirates, just really knocked out. But Hojang, who was leading this rally, he got kidnapped by the pirates. The pirates said, you're coming with us, you cheeky dude. We'll show you to rally people against us. and they took him aboard the ship. And, ooh, it's brand new, look! So they took him aboard the ship, and they, wait. So they took him aboard the ship, and they were going to take him back to wherever they wanted to go, and as a prisoner. And Hojang was full of rage. He was so mad, and he said, "You may take me, you may hurt me, you may hurt the people of this village." And with that, this huge storm came out of nowhere and just bubbled up over the sea, and the clouds broke out, and there was thunder and lightning, and the Japanese pirates, they got scared, and they were like, "What's going on with this angry little man? How did he make a storm?" And just then, lightning strikes one of the two pirate ships, and it sinks. And the pirates are like, "Oh my God, this Hojang guy." And the second ship that's remaining that has Hojang on it, they decide they got to get out of here really quickly, and they head towards the opening of the harbor, which is where the arch of the Rock of the Crow is. And so they head for this arch, and they're like, "Go, go, 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 go." And the lightning strikes again, and a big, huge octopus comes out of the sea and wraps around the ship and brings it into the ocean, and the pirates are no more. And to this day, the people of that village believe that the octopus was the summoning of Hojang's spirit, his desire to protect his village. And of course, Hojang died too when that happened. So they believe that the giant octopus is still there, waiting to protect the people of the village. And so every year they have a festival to celebrate Hojang and the octopus that saved them from the pirates. And I think that's just a super cool story. The other region that I told you about, the Korean War POWs and refugees who came after the split. And so these POWs and these refugees who fled North Korea, you know, they're displaced, right? They don't have generational homes or farms. They don't have connections down here. So they need to find a way to make their livelihood quickly and easily down here in South Korea. And what's something that they know how to do that most South Koreans aren't super keen on? That's Naengmyeon. The two main things that people who came from North Korea, and with that kind of background, it shouldn't be surprising that the current president, Moon Jae-in, actually prepared Naengmyeon as the first dish to share with Kim Jong-un during their first ever summit. So like, he's showing something about the history between the two countries, right? So it's not shocking. That being said, I don't know if the Naengmyeon that they ate was good or not. But they did, they had it. Actually, there's two main varieties of Naengmyeon. There's mul Naengmyeon, which I mentioned before, and bibim Naengmyeon, which I also mentioned before. And you can probably guess, if you speak any Korean, mul Naengmyeon is water Naengmyeon, and it has a kind of soupy stuff, soupy broth all through it. And then bibim Naengmyeon is a Naengmyeon that's mixed with a primarily gochujang paste. And the word bibim actually means to mix. So again, that really literal Korean language, right? So bibim Naengmyeon is mixed Naengmyeon. Mul Naengmyeon is water Naengmyeon. It's really easy to guess what things mean if you know a little bit of Korean. Those are the two main varieties. And like I mentioned before, mul Naengmyeon comes from the Pyeongando or Pyongyang area. And bibim Naengmyeon usually comes from the Hamhung area or Hamgyeongdo. There's actually another type of Naengmyeon that is very famous these days, which is not even called Naengmyeon anymore. In the past it was, but now its name has evolved, and that's called Milmyeon. Milmyeon is something that sort of developed in Busan. So when the refugees of Hamhung and Hamgyong area went down to Busan area and settled around there, they couldn't get all the same ingredients for their Naengmyeon. And so what they did instead was they started mixing the buckwheat with sweet potato starch. And that's why it's a little bit tanner in color. If you do a Google search for Milmyeon, it looks almost like white. And the reason it looks almost white is because it's mixed with sweet potato starch. And so Nengmyeon is the Busan variety of Naengmyeon. I have never done my eyebrows while talking before, so this is a very big day for both of us. You're learning about Naengmyeon, and I'm learning how to talk with my eyebrow application. Naengmyeon, like I mentioned before, originates from Pyongan, and what it is basically the buckwheat noodles plus a broth. Originally, it was made from either beef broth or pheasant broth, but here in South Korea, you will only find beef broth. And then North Korean varieties usually put some sugar on the table so you can add more to taste. But in most South Korean restaurants, if they add sugar, they add it before they serve it to you, so you won't find it, you know. But if you're in a really North Korean style place, you might have sugar on the table to get extra sugar if you want it. And then, of course, there will be some cut vegetables like cucumber, radish. And then people usually add mustard or vinegar to taste. And that's Naengmyeon in a nutshell, in a Naeng shell. And then Naengmyeon, like I said, is a mixed Naengmyeon, which comes from Hamhung, or Hamgyong province. And that is buckwheat noodles. And it also usually has just a little bit of the beef broth to help the noodles not get sticky. But it's usually mixed with a gochujang paste, with some sesame oil and also some sugar to taste again. And usually with sometimes people like to make it spicy, especially these days it's pretty popular as a spicy dish. Is also topped with fish, raw fish, which is delicious, and it's called ㅅNaengmyeon. ㅅ means raw fish, so again, very literal. So you can have some raw fish on top if you want an authentic experience, and that would be called ㅅNaengmyeon. I'm trying so hard to draw pretty eyebrows, and I'm doing a great job, even though this is my first time talking. So you there at home, while you're watching this, say, "Yay, Maggie, good job." Thank you. Thank you very much. And in Korea, too, in the past, cutting your noodles was sort of seen as cutting your life, because noodles were seen as a symbol for longevity. Even like when Koreans got married, they would eat guksu, kalguksu? I think it was kalguksu. Anyway, they would eat noodle soup, and the noodles are supposed to represent a long, happy married life. Aww. I didn't eat noodle soup at my wedding. But you know, that was what they symbolized. The noodles symbolized a long life, and so cutting the noodles used to be super rude, because it's like, hey, don't you want a long life? But after the Japanese occupation was over, among wealthy people, even in the 1920s, before the Korean War ever happened, this is so hard. I think I've made decent looking eyebrows. So contrary to the current popularity of eating naengmyeon in summertime, back in the day, naengmyeon was actually most popular in the winter time. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Maggie, no, that's not possible. Who would ever enjoy cold noodles in a cold northern winter? But the fact of the matter is that buckwheat is actually harvested in the autumn, which means that the buckwheat noodles will taste their freshest in the winter. So the yummiest naengmyeon was available in the winter time. There's also another region of North Korea called Hwanghae, which also has a strong naengmyeon background, but it's a little bit different. The history for the naengmyeon in this area is pretty much the same, but the naengmyeon itself is different. The biggest difference between the Pyongan naengmyeon and the Hwanghae naengmyeon is that the noodles are thicker. Naengmyeon was already a pretty popular dish in Seoul in the 1920s. It was a popular summer dish, even though in North Korea it was more popular in the winter. Exploded in popularity, like I said, after the Korean War. Wing. What do you think? Is it a good wing? So that's what they went to, and so those areas became more more full of 물 Naengmyeon, the Pyongan style Naengmyeon. People of Hamgyong, however, settled more around the Cheonggyecheon area, and so they brought with them the Bibim Naengmyeon. Ooh, this is hard. I am not giving up though. I can do it. So they settled around the Cheonggyecheon area and the Jeongbu market area, and so that's where Bibim Naengmyeon got more popular, and especially when it's spicy. Oh, I love spicy Naengmyeon. It's the best thing for stress. And if you've got a sinus infection, I promise you won't have one after you eat it. So there you go. Give it a try. Now, I'm going to tell you, those are the two most popular and most well-known types of Naengmyeon. But there are other types of Naengmyeon which you can try all throughout South Korea still. So the Incheon area Naengmyeon that you can find is mostly the result of people from Hwanghae escaping to Baekgyeongdo. I can say words. Baekgyeongdo. Do means island, so Baekgyeong Island is where people from Hwanghae, where people from Hwanghae fled to. And so they brought with them their style of Naengmyeon as well, and it developed over time into its own unique style too. The really distinct and special difference for this one is that instead of being beef or pork or pheasant, the soup, the broth, is eel fish sauce based. So, you know, Incheon is a port city, very, very nautical. And so you've got more fishy influence, right? So an eel fish sauce is the base for the soup there, rather than the beef sauce that we're used to in South Korea, or the pork sauce or the pheasant sauce that they had in North Korea. So worth a try, something different, something you haven't had before, definitely worth checking out as well. The history of Naengmyeon in Daejeon started with this place called Sutgolwon, which is still there today, I've been told. I've never been to Daejeon, so I don't know. But I've been told that it's still there, so, you know, Google search it. But anyway, it's different because instead of using beef or pork or pheasant or eel sauce, they use chicken with a dongchimi sauce. And so that's really unique too. Now the Busan Milmyeon is sometimes also topped with chicken breast. So it's not, you know, it's not a Daejeon exclusive, but the fact that the chicken is also used in the broth is unique to Daejeon. Fun fact, Daejeon means big field, and that's the most interesting thing I know about Daejeon. Sorry to Daejeon. I'm sure there's many other things, but that's all I know. I don't know everything, you know, contrary to what you might want to believe. My encyclopedic knowledge only extends so far. Man, this mascara is great. Look how pretty my eyelashes look. Look at that. Look. I didn't put on any extensions. There's no extra. It's just me and my pretty eyeballs. Now, I keep bringing up Busan, and I know you're thinking, Meggie, why do you keep skipping Milmyeon? Surely it's got its own name. There must be something worth talking about. It's got its own name. Why don't you talk more? Why don't you focus on it? Well, I was saving it just for you, to keep you anticipated until the end. So here we are at the end. We're going to talk about Naimyan. So, as you know, the people from Hamgyong went further than just the northern parts of South Korea. They went all the way down to the south. They went all the way down to Busan. And in Busan, they, like I said, they developed Milmyeon. They developed Milmyeon by mixing the sweet potato starch in with the buckwheat. So after the 1954 evacuation of Hungnam, an entire kind of North Korean refugee village was built in Uamdong in Busan. And so a bunch of people moved down there, you know, thinking, I'll be safe, I'll be comfy, it'll be all right. And the same idea that hit everybody in Seoul hit people down in Busan. They thought, I gotta make a living, I gotta do something to keep myself making money and keep my families fed and clothed and all that jazz. So they started a Naengmyeon restaurant. One particular refugee who had owned a Naengmyeon restaurant in Naeho opened the same type of restaurant in Busan and called it Naeho Naengmyeon. So he realized that the ingredients weren't that easy to cultivate, so he developed a noodle which was 70% buckwheat and 30% not Naengmyeon, 30% sweet potato starch. So that's how Nengmyeon was born, through trial and then struggle, and then creating something innovative and unique. So that's how Nengmyeon was born. Was, you know, trying something, Naeho Naengmyeon, realizing that you didn't have everything that you needed to make it work, and then doing something innovative and creative and having success because people liked it. And actually the adding the chicken was also pretty much the same idea. You had this thing that you liked and then tried something else and it worked out. So you can find lots of Nengmyeon restaurants in Busan these days, and a lot of them will top their Nengmyeon with chicken, which is very yummy, actually. A boiled egg, some chicken, and a little shredded cucumber. Very nice. I've actually been to Busan, and I've eaten it myself. The last place I'm going to tell you about is Jinju Naengmyeon. Jinju Naengmyeon is probably the most unique Naengmyeon on the market. And unlike its let's say cousins, unlike its noodle cousins, it didn't really come around until the 1960s. But it is exceptionally unique because it has a seafood-based broth. Its noodles are made from sweet potato starch and buckwheat. And on top, they've put a bit of yukjeon. They put a beef, you know, the jeon is Korean pancake, right? If you don't know that, now you know that. Jeon is the Korean, so kind of like a flat frittata. You know, it's not a pancake like a breakfast food, it's a pancake like a frittata, but flatter. So, you know, they've got potato jeon, kimchi jeon, and beef jeon, which is called yukjeon. And on top of Jinju Naengmyeon is a big old yukjeon just sitting on top. Isn't that cool? So I've never heard of any other place that puts jeon on top of their naengmyeon. This is totally unique to this one as far as I know. You know, maybe if you know about another place that does it, leave a comment and teach me something, because I can learn something new every day. Like I said, I don't know everything in the world, and I'm always willing to learn more. I'm doing such a sloppy job. Oh my God. I just want to be beautiful. I just want to be beautiful and tell you about Naengmyeon. Is that so much to ask? But there you have it. So we've covered the big regions. We've covered the history of Naengmyeon. We've done everything that we can with this beautiful noodle except for eat it. And I highly recommend that you do. Whenever you get a chance, you know, if it's in the USA, if it's in Korea, don't pass up the cold noodle just because it says cold noodle. Sometimes things are a consistency that we don't expect, and cold and noodles actually go really well together. So that's the history of cold noodles. They traveled all the way from North Korea straight to your tummy. So there you have it. That's the history of Naengmyeon. It came from North Korea, and it has stayed in South Korea, and it's become so commonplace, so widespread, that most people don't even think of it as a North Korean food. Nobody goes around and says, hey, I want that North Korean food, Naengmyeon. Naengmyeon is just Naengmyeon. But what we've learned today is that Naengmyeon has, I don't know. I'm wearing a lot of red. I usually go for a more natural tone, which is like that. But I feel so bold. I feel bold like the bright red gochujang of Naengmyeon. I think, oh yes, let me be bold and red. Why not? So, a food that's so widespread and so popular and still very cheap to afford has a very interesting backstory. And almost nobody thinks about it. Except me. And now you. So, mwah. I don't know if you noticed, but I put lip balm on first because you should moisturize your lips as much as you moisturize everything else. It's good for you. It's healthy. So anyway, that's it. That's the history. I hope that you enjoyed me struggling to put makeup on while I told you the history of Naengmyeon. And I'm going to do it again. So if you want to see more, make sure you come in for the next episode where I'm going to talk to you about the tombs that are located in the middle of Seoul and they have a spooky secret. So if you want to see that, be sure to like, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that little bell so you get a notification when a new video is uploaded. And until then, I'll see you next time. Go eat some Naengmyeon.